Iron and Infrastructure Podcast Introduction. The podcast that ties together fitness and construction, shifting the industry narrative and giving insight on how to become a business owner while living life under the bar, weightlifting, personal development, the infrastructure industry, and how to merge the two worlds to achieve prosperity. I'd rather be sidelined trying to achieve greatness than watch greatness achieved and it only set on the sideline. Now introducing your host, Jacob Emery. All stand and applaud, please.
This episode is brought to you by R&R Pipeline, an infrastructure company. Our purpose? Enhancing America's infrastructure with a safety-driven, integrity-led culture that provides an environment for team members to grow and thrive. All right, on today's show, the Iron Infrastructure Podcast, I have a person that I just met recently who I'm going to tell a little story about first. I had no intention of releasing the podcast of mine until 2024. And it wasn't until I got an invite from Rob Dube, our guest today, for his own podcast that my journey got expedited quite a bit because I wanted to make sure that mine was released, or at least ready to be released before I got interviewed on Rob's podcast. And that journey got expedited by months. And I'm glad it did because now, coming into 2024, I feel a lot better than had I would have waited. Got all the bugs worked out. At least I would like to think so. Rob Dube, I don't even know where to start, but I'm going to start on the business side a little bit. So you were the founder, co-founder, owner, and now you're on the board chair of ImageOne. You are the visionary and CEO of the 10 Disciplines. You're a podcast host, co-founder of the Entrepreneur League, and you're the founder of the Do Nothing Leadership Retreat, among plenty of other things that you've done in your life. For such an accomplished person, I'm so interested in how you strive to do nothing. And let's start with wellness, doing nothing, and how that leads to a more productive Rob Dube.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Jake. And I'm really excited and proud of you, actually, because, you know, it's one thing to have an idea and it's another thing to do something with the idea. And that's what you're doing. And it was fun to hear that something sparked in you to move your podcast forward and get it going. And as you said, work out the kinks because, as you mentioned, I have a couple of podcasts and I know what you're saying about working out the kinks. So I'm proud of you, and taking action and taking a step forward puts you in the top percentage of the rest of the people in the world because most don't even take the step forward. So I congratulate you on that. Now let me answer your question. You mentioned wellness in the question about doing nothing. And, just for the listeners to understand what do nothing means to me and why I wrote the book, Do Nothing, the most rewarding leadership challenge that you will ever take, is that, I had a lot of trauma growing up and a lot of abuse in my life. And I was looking for, something that could help me work my way through it. I tried, and successfully, with many different types of modalities, as I like to call them, different types of therapies, different types of, just ways of learning about yourself and learning about the things that happen to you in your life and the effect that they have on you. In that journey, I learned about meditation, which leads us to talking about do nothing. That's for me, just sitting in stillness, focusing on my breath for some period of time, and in silence. So that I found to be very useful for me. Now, at this point, some of your listeners may have or may not have heard about meditation as something that could be in the wellness category. It became more well known in the last 5 to 10 years. When I started about 20 years ago, it was definitely not something people thought of in the wellness category. But nonetheless, we have busy lives. We have a lot going on, and there's a lot for us to mentally and also bodily process. But we do not take the time to just slow down And as we like to say, just be still. And there's a great benefit to doing so. In many ways, it's not the kind of result like I know you have a very disciplined exercise routine. You're very much in shape, and you can see the results of that in your body. But with meditation, doing nothing or being still, it's not as easy to see. You know, there isn't something to actually view. It becomes over time more of a state of mind that allows for you to witness what is going on in this mind of ours. Some call it like a monkey mind, a very busy mind. There's just, for all of us, if you're human, you have a lot up there and it's spinning around. And it's your ability to kind of slow down and just notice, like, wow, there's a lot going on up there, and just letting it settle. I always like to use the example of a jar with a cap on top, and let's say it's filled with water and some sand, and you shake it up, and of course the sand is swirling all around in there. That's your mind. And when you try to look through the cup, if it's glass, you can't see through it. It's cloudy. But when you set it down and give it a little bit of time, it settles, and then all of a sudden you can see through it. And that's kind of like our minds and even our bodies. We need to let them settle down and allow for us to kind of catch up. And so those are some of the benefits to taking that time in stillness. And as I mentioned, I use meditation, but other people have other ways of being still. They can, I know many people that are quite religious and they pray, and that's another way of being still. And some people do contemplations, and there's all kinds of different things that you can do. But you just have to find what's right for you. And that's what I found that seemed to be useful for me.
And it's not a one size fits all, like you said. And I know I did a powerlifting meet last year, and a couple weeks out from the meet, I was completely fried. My central nervous system shut off completely. So I had went way too hard. I was coming off of injuries, and I could not get my mind right. And so a week leading into the powerlifting meet, I got some advice from a good friend of mine, Tony Ramos, who trained at Westside Barbell and had some incredible feats of strength, in his career. His advice to me was, don't work out all week. And I would go sit in an oxygen chamber almost every day. And I went and laid in a float tank, a pool. I tried everything I could to reset my CNS. And I didn't do as well as I would have liked to as far as the reset, but I definitely felt immediate relief. And the one thing that I didn't realize was I was not shutting off enough. So I was in overdrive all the time until the wheels completely fell off, and it was at the worst time. The recovery is kind of like preventative maintenance. And like I just disclosed to you before, we started recording, it's the number 2 topic of mine for next year as far as focus goes. And I didn't realize the value in not doing anything. So for me, organically, my meditation has been more an ice bath and sitting in a sauna. And because I focus on my breathing, I'm not really listening to anything. I'm focused on something specific, whether it could be a nail on the wall, or a hole in the wall, or something that's on the wall, or something outside. And I'm just in that moment, and I'm present with what I'm doing. I'm very intentional about it. I
Yeah.
didn't realize, though, that I was somewhat doing nothing. Now I understand a lot more because of Rob, and it is something that I'm going to be very, very conscious of going into next year. And the other thing that I did, I have a real bad tendency to create a sense of urgency before it's needed. So before I understand all the facts of a situation, I'm very quick to speak out, to send emails, to do whatever. And it creates an unnecessary sense of urgency without communicating the why behind of it. And now I sit back and I process everything. I get all the facts of the situation before I move forward. And then, I guess in a roundabout way, that's almost a meditation of some sort, because I'm not speaking or doing anything, and I'm just sitting there and collecting all the facts and analyzing it from a third party view. And when I look at it from sitting over there and not using, any emotion of mine, not going based on what I think it is, but what the reality is, and I start from there. It has been powerful for me to be able to do that and then move forward where I'm not emotional about anything. It's not an emotional reaction to a situation because of our environment. Our environment from a young age, Rob, is something that we are not in control of. And adversity that we face, at a young age is not something that we can control. Our environment's kind of dictated for us. And then that environment and adversity really makes or breaks who we become at an older age. We either overcome it and then do something good with our life, or, play a victim to it or let it control us and then, end up falling into the same trap and continue the same thing that happened to us. And I've seen it go both ways multiple times. One thing with the meditation, you said it's not something that you can feel or see very easily. Would it be fair to say that others around you witness it before you witness it yourself? Is that common?
In some cases, I don't know if I'd say common or not common. I think that people might notice a shift in a person. So, for example, with what you were just sharing, when you're in the ice bath or the sauna, you're focused on a nail or whatever it is, and you're focusing on your breath. You're in the present moment. And that's all you have. You don't have the past. And even though you and I might like to think, especially being entrepreneurs, that we can control the future, we can't.
Right.
All we have is the present moment. So where people start to notice it is they notice you're more present with them in that moment. And so they might say, Jake, you used to be, it seemed like your mind was other places, but you really seem like you're in tune with me when we're chatting all of a sudden. That's where people start to notice. Another way that you might notice, like where you physically see the results of your workouts, these are your mind workouts, is, I'll give an example of what you just shared, is your tendencies to make quick decisions with little facts. So now with that awareness in the present moment, you slow down. You bring awareness to your tendency and you change it. And that's making a mindful decision. And I actually teach mindful decision making. So I want to build on what you shared. So you collect the facts, which are important because we have these amazing things called minds, and they give us the ability to analyze situations with certain information. But there's more to us. The mind is just one piece of it. We also have our hearts and we have our guts or our intuition. Mm-hmm. So when you can bring those three together, you'll make better decisions in your life, and you'll be able to bring them together better by learning to slow yourself down and finding times of stillness, like you mentioned. So in mindful decision making, we take in the data, because that's the first thing our mind is wired to do, most of us. But then we go into our bodies. That's where, and might be hard for some people, but stick with me. This is where we have the most power. It's actually in our bodies, not in our minds. Our minds kind of mess us up, actually. But when we learn to tune into our bodies, this is where it gets really powerful. And I want to use an example that a lot of people can relate to.
Absolutely.
I like to use the example of animals. So I'm a runner. You and I were talking about that before. And I go running usually pretty early in the morning. And I see wildlife a lot. And what I notice about the wildlife is they know I'm coming. And if any of you have ever witnessed wildlife as you kind of come up on them, maybe you're hunters, or maybe, you live in a rural area with more wildlife in the city or whatever, but they seem to notice things. And they have a way, and it's not their analytical mind. See, they pause. And I'm thinking about deer right now. Mm-hmm. They pause. Absolutely. And, they might be a quarter mile away from me, but I can see their eyeballs in the dark because I wear a light. And they're just staring. And as I get closer and closer, something inside their body says, move to a different spot. Maybe it's not even like you're in big danger, but this isn't where we should be right now. And so they slowly move away. And we actually have that inside of us, but we don't pay attention to it because we're so in our heads. So it's important to get out of our heads. Let's go into our intuition. This is where we have life experiences and our intuition or our guts kind of telling us. I mean, we've all heard that. What's your gut telling you? Should I buy the house? Should I not buy the house? I don't know. What's your gut telling you? Right? So your gut tells you something, and it's the culmination of a lifetime of experiences. So there's an aspect to paying attention to your gut. So now you have your facts from your mind, and you have your gut, which is that lifetime of experiences, and then you move into your heart. And that's the hardest thing for us to do, because you really have to open up, and you really have to let the world in on this. And that's kind of the final piece to it, is what's your heart telling you? And that, to me, is the greatest signal of what's right. Because sometimes your mind might say, I don't know if I should do the house, because you know what? I remember my uncle, he bought a house and he went bankrupt and he lost everything.
Right.
And so you might be doing that. And then your gut says, and I've seen other members of my family lose everything. And so I don't know, maybe I'll lose everything. So now all of a sudden your intuition, those life experiences kind of pulling you away. But then you open up your heart and you say, but something inside my heart says, I won't make those same mistakes because I learned from them. I have wisdom now. Yes. I don't have to worry about that because the facts say I can afford it. My intuition says it's good for my family. It's good for my financial situation. And my heart says, I need to open up and not be scared. And now you can make the right decision. So that's mindful decision making.
That's amazing. That's absolutely incredible, the way that you just displayed all that. And I'm glad that you did. I will have to go back and listen to that again and make sure that I'm mindful and aware next time. It is incredible because we do learn so much from our environment, and what we learn in our environment, what we're taught at a young age, it goes to our head. You know, we know in our head what we have been accustomed to from an environment standpoint growing up. And for me, I grew up in a very prideful, I'll do it myself. It was not a who, it was a how. How can I do this? How can I do that? And from a very young age, I just seen things that did not make sense to me. I don't want to change my oil in my truck for $20. And it's going to spend me 3 hours to go get the stuff, $20 to do it, and I can take it somewhere, and I can read a book for an hour and have someone else do it for $20. It just didn't make sense to me. And that's where I think the gut feeling, but the heart really is, telling you which way you should or shouldn't go. And so many times I have had a decision that really came down to, it's not that I need to do it, but I want to do it, and I'm determined I can. And this podcast is a prime example. I don't need to do this. I didn't need to do it, but I was determined that I could and that I wanted to. And it wasn't a gut feeling or a reaction from my head. It was really my heart saying, if I can impact other people's lives and help them by just creating awareness to a different way, it's all worth it. And now it is completely evolved from that original point. But the way that you just explained that, I can completely relate in multiple areas of life where, my head and my gut weren't really telling me it's the right decision, but I couldn't let it go because of what my heart was saying. And so that's very, very powerful.
I love that example because, especially with the oil changing, so if a person loves changing oil and they just get such joy out of it, by all means, go change your oil. Like, no one's saying don't change your oil. Right. What we're saying here is, and I think it's really interesting that you just knew inside that didn't make sense to you. Somehow that imprint was made somewhere along the way. Who knows? But something inside of you said, even though my family's like this, I'm the outcast in a way, not in a bad way. It's just I'm different. Like, I'm not going to do that. I would rather learn. You said you would rather read a book, so I'm using that. I would rather spend that hour or 3 hours learning, and I'll pay for somebody to do the oil. So again, that's a great way of knowing thyself and knowing in serving yourself, because many of us have a hard time not going along with the, with what might be expected in us. So I forget how you phrased your family, kind of like do it yourselfers or
Right.
that kind of thing. It was
Prideful is how I said
prideful.
it. Was
That's what
very
it was.
prideful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Very prideful. I'll do it. And you were able to take a step away from that. That's a scary thing to do. I give you a lot of credit, especially in a family dynamic. We're worried about oftentimes, just for one thing, being judged. Like, what are they going to think of me? What are they going to be saying to me? Are they going to tease me at the, a holiday party, or a holiday get together? Oh, Jake never changes his own oil. He's too good for that. That kind
Well,
of thing. You
yeah.
have to be able to step away and say, that's okay. They can say those things. And I'm okay
Right.
with that. It's not going to affect me.
It is amazing how many people make decisions based on perception from others. And
Yes.
I think my adversity in life has calloused me to not give a shit at all about other people's opinion. But the ones that I call out on for, to ask their advice, and obviously I respect their opinion. But majority of people, I just don't give a damn what they have to say. And if people have a problem with what I'm doing or want to confront me about it, then call me or text me on my cell phone number. And if you can't do that, then don't bother wasting my time. It's your problem, not mine. If you have something, against me, I don't care. I'm going to do what I want to do and how I do it, because I know my intention is good. And at the end of the day, I want to help other people. And if other people don't like it or have a problem with it, that's on them. It's not on me.
Yes.
I didn't understand how freeing that was until I seen other people not be able to do that. Public perception was such a big thing for people. In our organization, I've had a handful of people, well, if I commit to doing this and I don't fail, and I fail, what is everyone going to think? I'm like, well, if you don't commit to trying, you already failed. That's worse than actually trying and failing to me. Trying and failing is just a learning lesson. It's just an opportunity to try again, to do something different.
Yeah.
But it is freeing when the outside world and that perception doesn't bother you at all. And for me, I think part of it was, the wellness part for me now probably stems from one of my two biggest fears, having my shirt off in front of other people at a young age. I was a fat kid growing up. I got teased all the time, and it bugged me when I was young. And I started lifting and working out and doing, different types of martial arts training at a young age because I hated myself. And now the tide has turned completely, where now I do it because I love myself and have respect for myself that I never did at a young age. And then, Rob, the second one is being able to be on camera or public speaking is the second biggest fear of my life. I couldn't read very well growing up, and I always had a tutor or, someone helping me read better. I had to sit on the opposite side of the class in school for a long time trying to get reading lessons, and I was kind of an outcast. And I don't know if that sparked me to just completely say, screw the world, I'm going to do it my way at a young age, or what it was. But I know I've went against the grain my whole life, and it's what I've wanted to do. And I didn't need to do it. I wanted to. And not having that prideful mindset has changed my life in generations to come, for sure. So it's been a great experience.
I want to build on what you're saying, if that's okay, because
absolutely,
and sometimes this is a little too soft for some people, but maybe you'll follow along with me, meaning the listeners. But, one of the things you said prompted a thought for me around how we make decisions, not mindful decision making, but making decisions from love or from our heart, or making decisions from fear or our ego. So when we're afraid, we don't make the best decisions. When we're afraid of being judged, when we're afraid to go against the grain, when we're afraid that, it'll cause some shame for us or something like that, those decisions don't work out well for us. But when we do it from love, we do it from our heart, like you mentioned, you have two things that were motivating to you. So that's kind of like a benefit. You recognized, hey, you know what? I'm young, I'm kind of chubby, and I want to be that way. And so from your heart, from love, you said, I'm going to change that in myself. And anyone can do that. I mean, you and I aren't special in that way. Everyone has that ability. And you know that listening, you have that ability. It's just a matter of taking a step forward and noticing. Also, the other thing was speech. And I can relate to that because I had to take, you had reading, I had to take speech lessons. I didn't know I'd be on stage speaking to, thousands of people and doing, all those kinds of talks and things like that, or being on podcasts with amazing people like you. No one would know I ever had a speech problem, ever. Right. Because, I made a decision from my heart that I was going to be able to, really be articulate in some way. I'm not saying I'm the most articulate. I have a lot of work to do, but, be articulate to some degree. And so, again, these are things we can overcome if we come from our heart and not come from fear or our ego, letting other things get in the way, like I can't do it.
Right.
You can do it. You do have the ability to do it. You just take one step forward.
Well, so understanding your pain points in life is one thing. Recognizing it, facing yourself is difficult for a lot of people. But then actually facing that fear and doing something about it. A coward and a hero both have fear in their life. One runs from it, one runs to it. And so I look at it now where it's okay to be fearful, but it's not okay to be afraid, because everyone is going to have failure in their life, no matter what. Everyone's going to have failure. So you can't be afraid to fail, but you can be fearful. And kind of back to your meditation, recognize the fear. Put your arm around fear and just say, come on, we're going to go on this journey. And you can sit here right next to me the whole time, but I am not scared with you right there. So being fearful is okay, because there are a lot of endeavors that I've looked into and maybe didn't take on because of fear. Or was it because I didn't know if it was right because of my heart? So there's a fine line there. But it's okay to be fearful. Right?
Yeah,
100%. To start a podcast for me, if I would have told you 1 year ago today that I was going to have a podcast, I would have told you that you're a damn idiot, because I would have never believed you. But now looking at it, why not? Why is there anything that you can't do if you want to do it? And it's not we talk about it in Coach a lot. It's not I need to do this. It's I want to do this. I want to do this show, because I get to interview amazing people like you, and I've had a lot of great interviews where I'm a better person because of this show already. And it's already helped some people out, and it's going to continue to help people. It's already a success to me. No matter what, if it never generates revenue, if it falls flat on its face in a few months, I already won. Now it's just fun. So
that's right.
Taking that on, and then understanding too, back to our minds. How many situations have you had where your mind told you one thing, you ripped the Band-Aid off, you did it anyways, and it was very, very simple compared to what you thought it was going to be? A lot of times just doing the thing isn't that difficult. It's actually overcoming the fear of the thing itself. But doing it isn't that difficult.
It's so true. It's so true. And that happens every day, multiple times a day, to all of us. And you're right. Fear is a motivator. It's when fear stops us from doing something, that's where it's in the way. But fear is great. I always like to say, if that's making me feel fear, I got to do that. Actually, I need to do that. There's something inside of me that's holding me back if I don't. That's the message. The fear is it's holding me back, which means I need to listen to that and move forward and do it, actually.
Yeah.
I wanted to build a little bit on wellness for a second here, because we were talking before.
Absolutely. Please.
You shared some amazing stories of, the fabric of our communities. The people that get shit done each and every day. These are the people in the out on the streets, making our pipes work better. I don't know how to explain your business, but I know you're in piping, but I go out there and they're out there. It's freezing cold. I live in Michigan, and they're out there bundled up. I can just imagine, and I'm in my car, I'm warm and thinking, God, it's cold out. I'm cold. Mm-hmm. I look at them. They've probably been out all day working the pipes, or the forklift operators, or the warehouse people, and, the delivery people, et cetera, et cetera. This is the fabric of our communities. This is what makes shit go. Unfortunately, there seems to be, with some, not all, a breakdown into the importance of taking good care of yourself. And so in my company, the original company that I started, you mentioned at the outset, it's called ImageOne. We have a lot of those kinds of people that work at the company. And so I created something called the Simple Six. And we teach this in one of our, we have a university, and we teach this to everybody in the company twice a year, just as a reminder. And these are the things that we all know we should do. I mean, you hear it all the time. People are telling you all the time, but for some reason, they're hard for us to do. So these aren't habits or disciplines that are easy for some reason as humans for us to, execute on, so to speak. But I always like to mention them because they are simple. And if you put a focus on them, and you don't need to be perfect, they can help you feel better each and every day. And the reason you want to feel better each and every day is because I know you want to be a better person in this world. You want to be better, not just for yourself, but you want to be better for your families if you have families, or your friends, or the people around you, like in your community, your coworkers, the people at the restaurant you like to go to, the bar where you might grab a beer. You want to be better for those people. And you can be. And so we talked about the first one, which was finding time for stillness, because once you have that in place, you have greater awareness of the next 5. And so the next one is you got to get sleep. You have to get good night's sleep. Our bodies need to recover.
Quality sleep. Yes.
Quality sleep. Absolutely. You have to get quality sleep. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to expand greatly on these because if you have a computer or a smartphone, all you have to do is Google or search any one of these topics and you'll get endless information. Just find the information that you like best and go towards it. Okay. But see, you already corrected me. You wanted to say quality sleep. That was important to you. Good.
Well, so it is because this is something that I went through personally. I'm going to jump in real quick and tell you about my craziness on my sleep. It took me years to figure out how to shut my brain off. And a friend of ours around here, Brian Peters, is the one that taught me how to do the sauna and the ice. And he now does it as a career. And he played in the NFL. He has a lot of history with exercise science, and he's very, very in tune. And he's the one that I went to his house, and we had a bunch of guys there, and he was teaching me breathing, teaching me how to do this, how to do that. And then he said, why don't you try taping your mouth shut at night? And at that point, I used to have I have a deviated septum from my nose being broke too many times on the right side. So I can only breathe out on my left side. And I thought, this guy's insane. I'm going to suffocate in my sleep. And now, Rob, a couple years later, it has transformed my life completely. I tape my mouth shut. I have earplugs in at night. I have a nose strip on, so it opens up my nasal cavity. And then every once in a while, I had LASIK surgery done, and I have blue eyes, so they're very, very sensitive to light. If there's any light at all, I'll put a blackout blind on over my eyes. But my quality of sleep, although the amount of sleep I get is not enough, the quality is better than it's ever been. And
it's great.
I don't sleep very well yet. It's still a work in progress, but I'm much more aware of how powerful it is. Breathing through your nose is such an underrated thing when you're sleeping. And a lot of people don't understand, like myself being a mouth breather because of my nose being broke. Sinus infections used to happen once a month, probably every other month at least. I used to get strep throat all the time, and I haven't been sick since I started taping my mouth shut. And people, when I tell them that, they think I'm absolutely insane for doing it. And then I tell them just to try it, and then try it for a week, and then tell me about how insane I am. But continue on. Continue on number 3 if you want.
And the thing I want to leave the listeners with is, Jake's just explained something that he was drawn to, and it's working for him. He tried, he experimented, and now he's getting quality sleep. Not enough, but quality sleep, he said. And so there's something that worked for him. He's got the blackout shades he puts over his eyes sometimes, the earplugs, etc. But you got to find what works best for you.
100%.
And like I said, it's endless information. So don't get overwhelmed, but try some things. You hear Jake is trying some things, but you all have to get sleep. Bottom line, if you're not getting enough sleep, you're not working at your best. when you reach a certain age, you're going to have something called mind fog. And there's different ways of saying that. And that just means your mind isn't going to be clear, which means you're not going to be your best with the people around you or in your job. Okay. And it's not a fun way to go through life. Okay. The next thing is nutrition. So that's the third of the simple six. And it's, look, everyone knows, like, we have to eat as well as we can and just be mindful of it. Okay. And I'm not here to lecture anybody on how to eat, what to eat. Again, go online, find the best diet, or diet in the sense, the best kinds of foods for you to eat in the right quantities. Okay. So if you're overweight, if you have trouble going up a couple floors, walking up a couple floors in a building and things like that, and you're losing your breath, you need to be mindful of that. We don't want to lose you. You're a special person.
Yes.
And that all that stuff's going to catch up to you. And you know it. You see people around you where it's caught up
Wellness or
to.
illness. Rob, it's wellness or illness. You're focused on one or the other. There is no other option. And you're either conscious about the wellness and making sure to do the right thing, or you're not really conscious that you're focusing on your illness. It just hasn't hit you yet. The timeline's delayed. That's how I, present it.
Yeah.
Because making the wrong decisions has the same compound effect of making the right ones. It just comes at you much harder, and it takes longer. Someone that gets overweight, though, it doesn't happen overnight. And the same as, someone that wants to lose weight, it don't happen overnight. So enjoying the process of it, the journey of it, and not just focusing on the destination, one day at a time, sticking to habit, 21 days to have a habit. I always start on nutrition, and this is a big topic of conversation on the show, with hydration. Water, just drinking water enough. It is a very, very misunderstood thing in our industry. Hydration alone is something that does not happen nearly enough. And I always say that hydration starts the night before. So, pipeline workers, blue collar workforce in general, they like to throw back a few beers at night, have a cocktail, whatever it is. I have a bourbon and Diet Coke every once in a while, just with the best of them. But making sure that you start that Monday morning out hydrated is one of the most essential things you can do for success during the week. If you start out behind on Monday morning, especially in the summer months, you're never going to get caught up. And it just wears you down. And I always try to reference it like a piece of equipment. Hydration, to me, is like a piece of equipment that doesn't have grease, and the hydraulics don't work very well. It moves kind of slow. It squeaks and creaks whenever you move it around. It doesn't operate well. It's not very smooth. It breaks down. Hydration is the same way to your body. You got to keep your body hydrated, keep it lubricated and ready for success. And if you don't, more than likely, injuries are going to occur. Your brain fog, like you mentioned, is going to be at an all-time high. Just drinking water alone is very, very impactful. So in some of the things that I'll tell people when they want to lose weight, I'm not taking anything from you. I just want you to drink half a gallon or a gallon of water a day for 21 days and then come back to me. Don't change anything else. And then after that, it might be, don't drink your calories and pack a lunch. I'm not going to tell you what to eat. Pack a lunch. It's creating the habit.
There you go.
If you can create the base habit, then eventually eating the proper diet, the proper foods, creating the lifestyle, though, is the foundation of it.
Yeah. That's so good. And, I always like to say, look, we were given this body. Now, whatever you believe in, whatever your, bigger, higher sources are, and maybe you don't even have any, but you do have this body. And, it's our responsibility to take care of it to the best of our ability. And so it will require, in some cases, doing some things you're not used to. And I like the way Jake mentions, 21 days is always a great way to do a habit. And, you might have to do some things like bringing a lunch to work. I would do that personally when I work at home now, but when I used to go. Yeah, I always packed a lunch. I liked it better, actually. It saved me time, but that's another story.
This commercial break is brought to you by the Pipeline to Prosperity newsletter. What are you putting in your pipeline to be successful? An Iron and Infrastructure LLC production.
Okay, let's move to the fourth one, which is movement.
Yep.
And I'm not asking you to wake up at, what do you wake up, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to hit the gym?
3 o'clock.
I'm not asking you to do that. I go out running. I'm a distance runner. I'm not asking you to do that either. I'm just asking you to be really mindful about moving on a regular basis. Now, if you have an active job where you're out there, physically doing stuff each and every day, then you're already moving. Like you don't need
Right.
probably more than that. It is important though to be mindful of your body. And so make sure, like
Right.
Jake mentioned before, make sure you get proper recovery if you can, and do, through
Mobility,
eating
stretching.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, stretching, all those
Yeah.
kinds of things. Eating right and getting enough sleep gives your body the ability to recover, so you won't feel so worn down when you're doing your actual job. And I know people at my company, that they have, they're doing a lot of movement. They're on the go constantly, and it can really beat them up. So this is a really important aspect. If you have like a office job or something, you're sitting around a lot, then yeah, you got to make a intentional effort to get up, go do walks.
Desk,
I love that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Go
The
ahead.
standing desk is something that I would recommend. And
Standing
also on this,
desks.
Rob, 10-minute walks after you eat,
Yep.
to help not only digestion, but, if you eat, you got the big meal in your stomach and you just sit on it. It just becomes
Yep.
like this anchor in your gut, and then you become lethargic. Especially if it's a high carbohydrate, sugar-based meal, but we'll leave the insulin sensitivity, till later.
Yeah.
But just getting up and moving and letting your stomach and your body digest that food like in a more natural setting, so much better than just sitting there. And I'm horrible sometimes at eating as I'm doing whatever and then just sitting on it. But I noticed a difference, and now that I'm aware of it, it's a conscious effort for me to move after I eat. It helps your digestion a ton. It really does.
I agree. You and I take a walk after lunch and dinner every single day. I just go, it's a mile. I know exactly, kind of the routine I have, but just getting out there, it's cold in Michigan in the winter. I get all dressed up. I got all my gear and all this kind of stuff, whatever works for whomever. But yeah, that's great advice. But do take, I would encourage the listeners to do take some time to take good care of your body. And again, you can go on and search and Google all this kind of information and just find what works best for you. Because ultimately, once your body feels better, you're going to be in a better state of mind and ultimately be a happier person. Now, there's two
and
more
start
that
small.
It does start small.
That's
right.
something that I'm really big on. So start, instead of saying that I'm going to do 1,000 push-ups a day, just do one push-up for 21 days, one squat for 21 days, and that's it. Commit to one. Now, however many you do doesn't matter, but you have to commit to the one, and then after 21 days, reassess, and then scale it from there. So many people want to go all in. I'm pushing all my chips in. I'm going to go on this crash diet, work out 5 days a week. When I haven't worked out for 5 minutes in the past year, it's not going to work. Start small. And we'll get into that more later, because I got a topic to bring up with you on that. But go ahead to number 5.
Yeah. Next one is connect. Look, there's other human beings around you. And some of us, especially, with the pandemic and everything, fortunately, that's kind of behind us. But, we got kind of, we got out of our connecting with other humans routine. But it's important. It's important to hear, to spend quality time with your family, your friends, the people that you care about most. It's also important to hear, different people's points of view, so you understand that, whatever it is, this point of view that you have in the world, there are other ones, and those point of views are just as valid as yours. So just having an open mind and being, open to the world, it actually creates a great energy within you to have that openness. When we're always shutting everything down, we're kind of in our own bubble, and there's like 8 billion people on this earth. So who's to say like, I know anything? I don't know shit.
Right.
So I'm just curious.
Yeah.
That's right. So connect with other humans. And when you're at the grocery store, you probably are already doing this, many of you, but God damn it, look at that person that's doing the, ringing you up, and just say something awfully nice to them. You will make their day. So go 100%. Out there and just connect in all kinds of ways. And then the last one's gratitude, because look, we're on this earth, you're living, you have many gifts. Maybe you wish you had more. That's not what this is about. This is about what you do have. And if you have your health, and you have a house over, or a roof over your head, and you have the ability to get bathed in, the kind of the key things in life where you have some level of safety, be grateful for that. Be grateful for the gifts that, that you have, and just spend literally a minute, 60 seconds. Can you find 60 seconds to just say, I'm grateful for these 3 things today? I know you can. I know you got 60 seconds. It's just about being intentional. And what that does is it begins to wire your brain, and you start to see things in a different way. You start to see things in the world as you go through your day from a view of gratitude, as opposed to maybe some of the other ways you've been seeing it in the past. And so I encourage that 6 of the simple 6 is just express gratitude each and every day.
And I love it all. It's something that I am not mindful of doing every day, but most definitely every one of them is something that I do on a daily basis. I'm so fortunate and blessed, at the opportunities that I've been able to create for myself and been able to take advantage of. And I want other people to feel the way that I feel, because it's a damn good life. I love every moment of my life. There's very few times where I'm mad, or I'll get frustrated, I'll get wore out, I'll get tired like everybody. I'm human too, but at the end of every day, I'm grateful for the experience, regardless of how the day went. And every day to me is a good day. There are no bad days in my life anymore. I had one bad day in my entire life, and that was it. And every day since then has been a good day. And it's something that I talk about my bad day perspective. I had a very tragic accident happen, and my wife's brother passed away in a car accident, and every day since then has been a good day. And I'll tell you what, it's not so much a meditation, but it kind of would be. I reflect on that day whenever I'm in a bad state of mind, and I've even went to the length of videotaping myself and expressing my mindset at that point, and then 20 minutes later going back and watching it and being like, man, this is pathetic. Shut the hell up. You have a great life. And I take that outside perspective after 20 minutes, and then completely eliminates all that, anxiety or stress or build up tension, and it all goes away, because every day is a good day. Getting up and doing what you love every day, like I'm able to do, hanging out with the people that I want to be around, getting up at 3 o'clock and going to train with a bunch of savages every morning is a blessing to me. And I've had more gratitude in probably the last year about being able to do that than I ever had in my entire life leading up to it, because now I understand that the moment's not going to last forever. It does have an expiration date. Whenever that is, it's to be determined, but everything does end. Everybody's life is a book, and every chapter ends the same way. We're all going to die, and that's inevitable. There is no other way about it. When you understand that, that's when you really start to live. So many people really die at 25, but aren't buried till they're 75. And just because you're living doesn't mean that you're alive and enjoying life. And figuring that out in the past few years has been one of the most gratifying things for me that I could have ever imagined. And then one other thing I got to say real quick. What we accomplish in life is not the ultimate goal. That is not success. Who we become to achieve that is what the success looks like. I thought buying R&R Pipeline was going to be this holy grail moment for me. 12 years of sacrifice for one goal. And I went after it, and I put all the chips in, and it sucked. There was 407 days of hell, from the time we tried to buy the company till the time we closed on it. And so many times I went home, scratching my head, confident that we would make it happen, had no idea how it was possible. And most of the time it wasn't really possible, and we figured it out. I thought for sure that accomplishment was going to be the ultimate holy grail for me. And 2 days after we accomplished that goal, I had never felt so empty in my entire life, because I didn't enjoy the journey as much as I should have. It was just about the destination. And once I got to that destination, I looked around and I thought, shit, just bought this company. This is great. And then, oh shit, we just bought this company. Now I'm not liable for 4 people, my family. I'm liable for 60 families. And if I screw up, if I do something that is catastrophic to this company, it affects everybody, not just me and my family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what I didn't realize was the person that I had became to accomplish that goal was what the real success was. The destination wasn't what it was about. It was about enjoying the journey, enjoying the process to get there. And now conscious or not conscious of it at that point, the last year or so, I've been much more aware of the present moment and how impactful it is because of reflection, looking back and thinking, man, these moments of failure, these moments of, what were problems at the time were really opportunities to learn and to get better. And now, I look at it from a solution. I'm in the solutions industry. Don't bring me a problem if you don't have at least a potential solution. But minimizing the problem itself and focusing on the opportunity or the solution, positive mindset is what I really want to get to. Mindset is everything in life. If you can have a bad day for no reason, you can have a good day for no reason. You might as well have a good day because I promise it's going to be a lot better when you put your head on that pillow at night. So mindset to me, something I touch on a lot. Positivity is massive. What you put your attention into, it grows. So if you're constantly a grouchy old bastard like a lot of the guys in our industry, and you continue to dwell on what happened or, oh, life happened to me. Life happened for you, and it's how you react to it is what, becomes of it. Negative all the time, you're going to have a negative, shitty life. If you're positive, you're going to have a great life, regardless of situation. And how many times, Rob, have you probably seen in other countries that, someone, poverty-stricken country, running water, electricity, and they get something so small that we would throw away right now and not think twice about, and it is a gift to them, and they cherish that moment because they don't have much, but they're very, very in tune with the present moment, and they're very positive in general, regardless of what they have. And we don't see that in our society much today. Everyone wants instant gratification, wants the next thing, and it's sad to see how difficult that is for people to appreciate what they have or be present in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important too, just to kind of circle into what you're saying, is that, even with I can have a negative or a positive outlook and things like that. That doesn't mean everything's always going well and that you're always like floating around, with joy and happiness. Shit happens in life. It's our ability to handle and how we react to the shit that happens to us in our
Yes.
life, because all of us have a human experience. And part of that human experience is we have stuff we don't like that happens, and we have stuff that we do like that happens. And when the stuff that we do like happens, we want more of that. So we run after it. And when things happen that we don't like, we push it away and we're upset about it. But when we're able to kind of bring it all into the bowl and kind of stir it up and just realize like, it's just life. It's just life. It's just me and my ability and how I react to it is what makes the difference. So I wanted to kind of wrap that up in what you said, because it doesn't mean Jake and I are floating around in the best mood every single day, every single moment. I mean, we have hard times too.
It's the reaction to the adversity that determines the outcome. And
that's right.
I reference blind optimism. I'm not blindly optimistic. This isn't about rainbows and unicorns. That's not what this is about. It's about facing adversity with a mindset of positivity to overcome that adversity and learn from it and create an opportunity for yourself to make sure that it never happens again. Every adversity in our life has things that lead up to it and that happen. And when that adversity hits, if we can reflect on what led to it, then we can prevent it from happening again, and we can learn from it and create one less area of, problem in our life, and then just have that opportunity be a learning moment. I look at it like win or learn, but never lose. So if you say, man, I lost or I keep losing or whatever, no, you keep learning. Your mindset's wrong with it. You think you lost, but you really learned. What did you learn so the next time you win? Gap in the gain would be another prime example from Strategic Coach. People that always stay in the gap are very, very easy to point out. And it's, to me, being a very positive, person, whenever someone's in the gap at all times, it's hard for me to even recognize it. Like recognize sitting at the table with them, or I avoid it because I don't want that kind of person around me. It's not someone that I thrive being around. It drains energy out of me for no reason, right?
Yeah, it's a great point.
So let's talk about personal development in general. And I know you had referenced Think and Grow Rich, which was one of the original 3 books of mine that I go back to probably once a year. How did personal development start for you? That's where my real interest is at. For me, it was adversity, pain points, and then a recommendation from Corey Gregory, and he kind of started it for me. But what was the starting point for you in personal development, and how has it transformed your life?
Yeah, I think in my 20s, I came out of college and I started my company, bootstrapped it, and really had no mentorship or anything like that. So I was just always trying to learn, like, what does it take to be successful? That was my first thing. I wasn't even worried about being happy or, any of the
Right.
stuff a lot of the stuff that were healthy, those kinds of things. That wasn't even on my radar screen. I just wanted to figure out how can I be a successful business person? And that's what kind of started the learning, me learning different types of things, but that all led me through curiosity and talking to different people and so on. And you talk to one person, they say, "Hey, have you heard of this thing? Heard this book or this resource?" And then you go investigate it. And next thing you know, you're all in on it. And then it's just it's what seems to ping you, what seems to resonate with you. A book like Think and Grow Rich, obviously that resonates with a bazillion people, because it's been around for
Mhm.
decades and it's still, one of the top books. So
Yeah.
that is tried and true. There are other things that come and go. It's like the flavor of the year. It's the new thing that everybody's kind of on top of, and, those kinds of things. And so, I just love it. I love learning about new things and noticing what resonates and what doesn't resonate for me, and what can I incorporate in my life that won't wear me down. That isn't like, oh my God, like I can't, like you were saying before, can I just start with 1 push-up? Do I have to start with 1,000? And just incrementally build things into my life. And then, I look back now over, 30 something plus years. And then all of a sudden, you know, all that wisdom is kind of
Yeah.
within you, and it's useful.
It's useful when it's amazing. I have never met an entrepreneur or anyone that is successful that is not an avid reader and not constantly involving personal development in every facet of their life to some degree. And for me,
Yeah.
in the last year, psychology has been something that I've been able to dive into to understand people better. I know now that I am a horrible communicator to my wife, to some of my friends, colleagues at work. I have realized where my weaknesses are, but then also understanding other people and how they operate and how they tick and how much different I am than a lot of my colleagues and a lot of people around me. So there hasn't been an area of my life that I haven't been able to overcome adversity or learn from because of that. The compound effect, though, for me was probably the first book that completely allowed it let me view the world differently. And you mentioned in your book, Do Nothing, committing to reading 1 page. And I'm just curious. I'm going to let you tell your story on this because it's something that I actually reference quite frequently, and I'm wondering if it's from the same person. So tell me about the committing to 1 page story. I think it was from Strategic Coach.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Who was the
You've
coach?
mentioned Strategic Coach a number of
Yeah.
times, and for the
Mhm.
listeners, that's a program that, you need to invest both your time and your money to go, and, you learn life tools while you're there. That's the best way I could describe it, but they're
Time
important for business.
management. Yes. Yep.
But ultimately they serve you in the totality of your life. And
Mhm.
there was in my first, this was over 20 years ago. It was my first day of the first workshop or whatever. I can't remember what it's all called now. And the person who was teaching was explaining that he was a horrible reader. And I felt the same way. I hated reading. I felt like I was like the worst reader on the face of the earth. It took me like months to get through a book. I had trouble finishing books. I had trouble, even just understanding what I was reading. I was lost all the time. My mind was wandering constantly. And now this guy's talking about what an avid reader he is, and he reads this many books a month and so on and so
Mhm.
forth. And he says, but I used to be a bad reader. And so I just committed to reading 1 page a day. And that just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, oh my God, I could do that. I could read 1 page a day and I'd probably understand it a little bit better. And I wouldn't feel the pressure to have to
Right.
finish all these books and, be articulate about what I read. And so that's what I did. I started with 1 page. And of course, you start with one, and the next thing you know, you read 3 or 4. And then the next thing you know, you read 10. And it just kind of builds that muscle. So, if you want to learn, you got to find a way, you got to consume it somehow. Reading's a great way because it works your mind differently than video or audio. Not to say those aren't worthwhile, because they are, but reading is a really great way to work the muscles in your mind and your brain. And don't feel like you need to, go through, consume, all kinds of, just grab one. And it doesn't even have to necessarily be a book that's about getting better. Find a book that's entertaining, if that's the way you're going to work your muscle. Maybe you'll do a book about being a better person another time. And like you mentioned, just start with 1 page and just close the book. No pressure. 1 page. If it's a 300-page book, you'll be done by the end of the year with 1 page.
Exactly. Yep. Who was the coach that suggested
Oh my
that to you?
God. Well, it's on the tip of my tongue. I wish I could remember it. I feel so.
Was it Lee Brower?
Go ahead. Yeah, it was Lee. Thank you. I knew it was an L. I kept wanting to say Wood. Yeah, it was
I knew
Lee.
it was Lee. As soon as I heard that,
Is he
I knew it
still
was
there?
Lee. So he was my coach at the beginning of this year.
No way. That's crazy.
He's 76 years old.
I was just going to ask you, how old is he now? Because that was over 20 years ago I was with him.
He is still kicking ass, Rob. And I'm telling you what, his workshop was one of the ones that were just, I had never had him before. I didn't know who he was. And he did a brief introduction. And throughout the day, I was pretty convinced that I could run through a brick wall. And I might even have tried when I got back to the hotel. I don't know. Because he had me so energized and so passionate about what I was working on at that time. And he told the story about the 1 page, and it was from John Wooden. He was friends with John Wooden, and that's where it all stemmed from.
Okay.
So John Wooden had referenced reading the Bible for a certain amount of time during the day. And Lee had talked about his problems with reading and whatnot, and then had said, I'm going to commit to reading the Bible for, I think, 5 pages a day or 10 pages a day. So he would go good for a week, and then he would miss a day, and then double down the next day, and eventually wouldn't do it. And he was kind of in between, where he had stopped doing it, and then ran into John Wooden at an interview. And John Wooden asked him, "How's that reading going, Lee?" And Lee was like, "Man, Coach, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm disappointed to tell you, but I haven't been sticking to it." And he's like, "Well, why are you wanting to read the Bible?" And, started asking him, is it going to make you a better husband, a better father, a better man? Are you going to be better to your peers? Ask him all these questions. And he said yes to every one. And he said, commit to reading 1 word. And he actually said 1 word, not 1 page.
1 word.
He said 1 word, open it up and read 1 word. And that was it. And so as he told that story, he's like, 1 word became a page, and then I committed to a page, and then it, evolved. And it was, when you mentioned that, I thought, this has to be Lee Brower.
That is
crazy.
And
it's crazy to think that was 20 years ago.
That's crazy.
He still is doing great, and he has a personal trainer too. So 76
that
years old,
me.
biological age was 58. So he's in the age reversal program, and he was almost 20 years younger than what his actual age was. Absolutely phenomenal human.
Amazing.
And I would say this too, for starting on the personal development, for me, I'm an audiobook guy, and I recommend audiobook a lot of time to people in our profession because of time. Time allocation with privacy is minimal, but like myself, I learned about 10 years ago, I'm driving to a job site. I have about an hour and a half trip one way. So if I'm listening to the radio, I'm gaining no insight. But if I'm listening to a book, then I'm an hour and a half to 3 hours better every day. And when I started doing that, the compound effect of who I was and then who I became, not even 6 months later, everything changed. The way that I viewed the world, the way that I operate on a daily basis. Instead of going out to happy hour at Applebee's across the street every night, I would go walk on the treadmill and continue to listen to the book because I was so passionate about it. And it became an obsession to the point that now at any given time, I have 4 or 5 books that I've been involved in, and I'll go back and forth. But I have been able to overcome so many pain points in my life because of finding a book, a
Yeah.
recommendation. And I actually have a Google sheet put together in about the last 2 years of books that I've actually read, and the books on my list of ones to read. And I probably went through 50 or 60 books in the last year and a half or 2 years, and I can tell my growth measurable very, very easily by that time frame. Because once I started that and to where I'm at now, it's not even a comparison. I'm a completely different person because of it.
I love it. I
So it's
love
been
it.
amazing. Yeah, it's been an amazing transformation. But personal development for me, kind of like just drinking your water, is the absolute starting point to evolve your life, to change your life.
So good.
Rob, this has been absolutely amazing. I really do appreciate you coming on, spending the time. Like I
And my
said,
pleasure.
I owe you one from the last time of the shit show I had last time. It's pretty funny, and it's
Oh, come
amazing
on.
how we connected through Ryan Henry, who is now our EOS coach, and isn't it amazing how powerful your network can be? So
Yeah.
I've never met you in person. I've only talked to you a handful of times, and you've already instilled wisdom in me that has changed my life and tied a
Thank
lot
you.
of things together for me that I never understood. And I know that you're going to continue to do so with the 10 Disciplines program that I will sign up for this year. I don't know when yet, but I will,
We'll see you there.
because
I
I
love
need to
it.
learn out of everything that I do. I reference my life like a top fuel dragster. I'm constantly trying to go 350 mile an hour, and every once in a while I'm going to break down and I'm going to need rebuilt. I reference it constantly. And my short podcast, versions that I do by myself, I call them the top fuel 5, from that quote.
Yeah.
And I have to learn how to do nothing certain times, because when I learn how to do nothing, when I'm actually applying myself in other areas, I'm going to be able to do way more and go faster. That 350 mile an hour might be 400 mile an hour when I'm able to do nothing.
That's right.
And I'm
You got
gonna
it.
put
You
you on the
got it.
spot. I'm gonna rely on you to help me do nothing, Rob.
Hey, I'm always here for you. I'm always here for you.
I appreciate
100%.
it. I
Thanks for
love it.
having me, Jake.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you big time. And congratulations on everything that you're doing. And, as you mentioned at the outset, I had the great honor of interviewing you for the Entrepreneurial Leap
Yeah.
podcast. And I remember, doing my research and getting ready for that interview and thinking to myself, I love this guy. This guy is a guy who knows where you could have ended up, but you just put your mind in the right spot early on.
Hmm.
And just learning your story was so inspiring. And I hope your listeners, if they don't know your story, which I imagine they do to some degree or, in totality,
Hmm.
it really is amazing. So it's just such an honor to be with you today, and very grateful to you for having me here.
Well, I do appreciate it. And while you mentioned the Entrepreneur Leap, I have to say I am inspired by you guys starting that. And I
Oh,
don't know
cool.
the details of the Entrepreneur Leap, but anyone out here, anyone that's listening, that is kind of an outlier, that is kind of a little bit on the fence of crazy or uncommitted or struggling in school, not sure if they want to go to college. I don't even know
Right.
the age demographic of Entrepreneur Leap, but someone like myself, had I had that program when I was coming out of high school or even in high school, and just knowing that, okay, prison might be where I end up. I did not see the business owner side of me, but prison was the only thing that made sense. And, when I was in high school, Rob, there was a high likelihood that I was going to end up in prison or dead by 21. That was actually, I have a note somewhere at my house that was actually on a note. And I have wrote a note to myself. I hope you don't become a drug addict. I hope you don't die. And I hope you don't end up in prison for your life at 21. That was my ceiling of success for myself. You should really see what my peers thought about me. But I figured out that if I apply it in the right areas, the craziness might go toward the greater good. And it did. Entrepreneur Leap will help so many people like myself. And I'm very passionate about this, and it's something that I cannot thank you enough for taking that on and being a part of that organization, because I think it's great. And I
Thanks.
think you're going to really make a huge impact on people's life at a young age that could help
Yeah, I
change the
appreciate
landscape of
that.
the world. Yeah.
I appreciate that. If listeners that feel this draw to entrepreneurship, and maybe it's scary for some, but they feel like they want to leap, as we use that word, you can go to e-leap.com, and there's all kinds of free stuff there, like tons. And one of the things is an assessment, and it will actually help you understand if you're kind of made for this kind of life. So just take the assessment and just kind of get it out of your head, like I'm made for this, or not really. There's also the book Entrepreneurial Leap. So read the book, get the audio book, whatever, and that'll kind of lay everything out for you. So those are like two very simple things that you could do to
highly recommend it
move forward
for anybody on the fence. Yeah, because just knowing if you are or you're not is powerful in itself, because either way it's okay. But just knowing, because
that's right.
If you always question it, it's going to drive you freaking crazy.
Exactly.
It will. But once you know, then okay, it's like, all right, I know yes or no. Now I can go whatever way I need to based on that information that I have.
You got it. All right, my man. Thank you. Very grateful for you.
Awesome. Rob, thanks again. I appreciate everything. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on. Iron and Infrastructure Podcast with guest Rob Dube. Rob, thanks again. We'll see you, brother.
Thank you. See you later.
This episode is brought to you by Max Effort Muscle. For all your supplement needs, go to maxeffortmuscle.com.